there's something weird about official guides. Sometimes they give you real insight. Something you miss, something that clicks, something that turns your run around. But other times, they feel like a PR intern skimmed Reddit for 5 minutes, slammed his face against the keyboard and said, that's a great day's work before going home for the night. So when Bandai Namco dropped their advanced tips guide for Elden Ring Nightreign, the question wasn't what's in it. It was, does any of this actually help you play better? Can it really save your run from the rain, the rage, and the regret of losing all your progress? Because let's be honest, Nightreign isn't normal Elden Ring. You don't have time to learn through failure. One mistake can tank your entire 3-day run, and the last thing you want is to trust advice that sounds smart but leads nowhere. So in this video, we're going to go line by line through the official tips. We're discussing whether they're actually useful, if they teach you anything you didn't already know, and most importantly, if following this guide could be the difference between victory or another painful restart. So without further ado, let's do it. So their first piece of advice is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Bandai says you should play every Nightfarer class at least once, so you understand their strengths and weaknesses. The idea is that if you know what your teammates can and can't do, you'll work better together. Look, on paper, sure, knowing what your teammates are working with does help. If you've ever played games like Dota or Smite, you already know the value of team comp awareness. You want to know who needs to peel, who sets up your combos, and who's just there to bait the boss. But here's the thing, they're framing this like it's some deep advanced tip, and it's really not. It's basically common multiplayer courtesy, and more importantly, it only works if your teammates also bother to do the same. If you're the only one on your team who took the time to learn everyone's playstyle, you're essentially a glorified babysitter for two clueless ult spammers who still don't know what the rain does. So what's my verdict on this? Is it decent advice? Yes, but it's not groundbreaking. It's the kind of tip that works best in pre-mades, or if you're the kind of player who already likes leading the rest of those playing. But as a general survival strategy, it's more like a nice to have rather than a game-saving tip. Next is exploring relics, and Bandai says that the relics aren't just stat boosts. They can change your element, add status effects, and vary in power based on rarity. They also mention systems like the Jar Bazaar, relic colors, chalices, and journal remembrances as ways to expand your options. So here's the thing, yes, this is technically good info, but it's also stuff most players already know, even casually. If you've made it to day 3 once, you've already seen how elemental matchups matter. If you've beaten a sovereign, you already know the second vendor opens with better relics than the jar guy. This section acts like it's dropping hidden tech, but it's really just summarizing stuff players figured out weeks ago. Plus, the advice feels weirdly vague. Feels more like a checklist than a strategy guide. I feel, with all the words that they used in this section, that it all comes down as pretty mid. Not useless, but not advanced either. If you've played even a few hours and cleared a single sovereign, you already have outpaced most of this advice. This section might have hit harder on launch week, but now it's just restating things most players already know, without giving the detail that would actually help someone optimize their runs. So now we shift from relics to when the earth shifts, and Bandai Namco explains that after each successful expedition, the world map will shift, unlocking new bosses, enemies, structures, and upgrades. These are called shifting earth states, and they can affect what buffs or events are available. They also mention you can reset the map back to default by sleeping at Round Table Hold. Okay, cool, yes, that's true. But this is something you learned almost immediately after beating your first Night Lord. Like, it's not hidden, it's not subtle. It's literally the game telling you, hey, the world changed, go explore. If you're even half awake during your first few runs, you're going to notice it. And let's be real, if you're the kind of player who hunts trophies or clears outside content, which a lot of us are, including myself, you've already seen most of these events. This isn't advanced, it's just repeating what happens naturally. they really wanted to give us value here, they'd mention the part that they left out. That beating an Everdark Sovereign lets you pick your next Shifting Earth configuration. That's the kind of control that actually affects your routing and your relic planning, but they don't touch on it. So my verdict is, it's a basic tip disguised as advanced info. Yeah, it's useful context, but it's not something that will meaningfully change how you play. Most players already understand it intuitively. If they're gonna tease the strategic value of Shifting Earth, then they should explain the parts that give you real control. Otherwise, it's just trivial. They shout we should be taking it to the next level, and this section finally offers some depth. It explains that boss drops don't despawn if left behind on day one, that runes are shared across the team, and that splitting up to tackle multiple objectives can lead to better loot and faster scaling. It also introduces Winding Grace, a one-time self-revive item that's especially useful in solo runs. Okay, finally we're getting somewhere. The idea you can split up, knock out separate bosses, and then just do a quick drive-by to collect the rewards later? That's smart. Coordinated teams could use this to seriously ramp up power before day 3. The problem? Most of us have been conditioned to never split the party. Every early game guide, every experienced player, and every instinct screams, stick together or die. So actually pulling this off takes more trust and coordination than most random teams can manage. That said, the info about boss drops sticking around to day 2? Genuinely useful. I've got many hours in this game, probably over 100 at this point, and I didn't even know that they persist like that. And the Winding Grace tip, that's great for multiplayers thinking of testing their skills in solo. It's niche, but appreciated. Also, the mention of weapon types tied to map structures, solid. Not new to veterans, but very helpful to players trying to plan routes more intentionally. The verdict on this one is that it's legitimately good advice. This is the kind of tip section that deserves the advanced label. Not all of it will apply to every player or every team, but the ideas here, the split routing, persistent boss drops, structure-based loot targeting, can change how you play. Easily the best part of the guide so far. Next, they decided to give us some advanced tips for each Nightfarer. Bandai closes the guide with a list of quick character-specific tips for each Nightfarer. Things like passives, synergies, and niche mechanics to help you understand your own pick and support your teammates better. The problem is, this whole section is a mixed bag. I'm going to quickly go through each one of these and tell you whether the advice is good or bad. With Wilder, let's be real, everyone who's played Wilder already knows his chain claw shot with jump attacks is actually really good, and most people jump attack with the big bonkers anyway. The only actual tip here is that the little icon below your stamina bar that shows your passive skill is still up, and that's kind of helpful. The rest, basic. On to his sister, Duchess. The status effect synergy is old news. People were stacking Bleed, Frost, and Poison with Duchess like 48 hours after launch. Nothing new here unless you've literally never read any of your own relics. Then we go on to Big Bird, the Guardian. Finally some real advice. The Steel Guard delay warning is good, but the tip about using Whirlwind to deflect troll thrown magic pots, that's clutch. Practical and obscure, and genuinely helpful for players struggling with ranged chip damage. On to everyone's favorite double fun bag of FP holding, the Recluse. We have a solid start here. Reminding you to use her passive to get your FP back is fine, but they totally fumble by not giving even a single combo of her magic cocktail. No mention of the busted lightning from the heavens smite attack, no ice frost layering, just vague encouragement. Both Iron Eye and Raider fall into the same boat. They give you some tips that are only really good if you haven't played the character before, and stuff that you would already figure out on accident just by trying the characters out. With Executor, that could be kind of decent. They mention that you should force trigger your tenacity before big fights, but they don't mention that his sheath on sheath parry is low-key busted and completely changes how to handle bosses. Also, the no cooldown cursed sword thing is pretty good, and the fact that it retains its charge after death. Something that an Executor main would know, but it's still good info. Now for everyone's favorite trauma mama, Revenant. This one actually holds up. No summoning cap is something a lot of people didn't realize, and reminding players that temporary units can contribute to necromancy is really useful. The call out to pack starlight shards is a great tip, especially for solo revenants who burn through FP like it's on a damn timer. Final conclusion for this section, it's half filler and half fire. Some of these are straight up recycled tutorial messages. Others are legitimately useful nuggets that even high hour players might have missed. Guardian, Executor, and Revenant get the best treatment here. The rest either needed more details or less handholding. If you're trying out a class for the first time, this section might have given you a little boost. But if you've already spent more than a few hours on your favorite Nightfarer, you're probably not learning anything new. And of course, they gave us some final words of encouragement. The guide closes with a vague, poetic paragraph encouraging players to read the codex and explore hidden mechanics, like the fact that touching phantoms, these shadow ghost players, gives you a small boost to your ultimate gauge. Let's start with the good. The Touch Me Daddy Ultimate Art Phantom interaction. That's gold. That is a genuinely useful, totally missable detail that changes how you move through the world. Suddenly, those random ghosts aren't just spooky background noise. They're potential fuel for your ult. Why that wasn't in the actual ult section guide, who knows? Everything else here? Fluff. The mention of the Night Fallen Cataclysm? No follow-up. Tools of Grief? What is that? Emo lore? The line about joining the recluse in the library. Cute, but again, zero real guidance. This could have been a great place to drop a few legit secrets. Something about remembrance items, secret vendors, stat breakpoints. Instead, it's like a teaser trailer for another guide that doesn't exist. My verdict here is it was a banger tip buried in a sea of riddles. If they had led with the Phantom interaction and added just one or two more practical insights, this section could have ended the guide strong. Instead, the best advice in the whole document is hidden behind a riddle about sadness in libraries. So yeah, Bandai's official Nightreign tips guide, it's like your dad giving you dating advice. Technically helpful, but something you probably already figured out the hard way. You'll figure out most of it through trial and error. Still, I'll give them this. The bit about splitting up to farm bosses faster, solid. Knowing boss chests don't despawn after day one, pretty good. And the phantom touching thing actually makes me think this list had potential to be something great. But if you were hoping this guy was going to unlock some secret sauce for dominating Nightreign, nah, this ain't that. This was more like a friendly reminder that yeah, the codex exists, and it's hiding a few gems behind walls of cryptic lore. If you learned something today, or you just like hearing me yell about mechanics Bandai forgot to explain, do what every other YouTuber begs you to do. Like, comment, subscribe, maybe even threaten the bell icon. I promise I'll keep bringing hard truths, bad jokes, and late game rage. And as always, be good to each other. See you in the next video. Peace.